Hello, everyone. It's live at 5 Mondays on Facebook with me, or avec moi, or Cheryl Millett. Today, I have a variety of topics, but I'm going to say, first and foremost, one of the things I like to just empower people is actually not to be I think I'm going to look for the opposite word of this, is actually to look forward to learning new things, attempting new things, and to understand that the only way that we get to learn new things and are able to do things is if we just try. It's, that fear thing or that worry thing that we're not going to do it right or we're not going to do it perfect stops a lot of people from trying to do things. Now, part of it might be judgments that come in from people around us, whether we've learned it very young, and that's our parents. But there's so much to do out there, and I kind of bring it up today only because I like to be adventurous. Yes, I like to try new things, and I will study, research, and I'll ask questions, sometimes more than others, and come up with crazy things. And if I had done study and research, it wouldn't have turned out that way. But I don't really care, right? It turned out the way it turned out, and it was interesting for me to do that. And I say this because, hi, Christine. Hi, David. I say this partially because when I'm saying I'm making chaga tea or chili is great, great for winter, and people are asking for recipes, it definitely is a sign that people want to try things and do new things. But I want to say on top of the recipe is actually to, again, experiment. If you only have these herbs or you have this or that, just feel free to go off the path, off the road, which most people will kind of take if we're following recipes, and feel free to, to try it out, change it up or try something different in there. But I did do the chili recipe, and I'm probably going to write a few more recipes, especially the ones I'm familiar with doing. And you don't need a recipe anymore after you kind of understand some simple things here. Now, some of the things I wanted to talk to today was actually something that came up, and I'll tell the story a little bit, was my daughter came home and she was very upset because the teacher got mad at her. Now this teacher has those tendencies to make kids cry. And she had said that the teacher got mad because she's supposed to have snacks at school. Now, we should understand at a very basic level that all food that we put into our body is energy. Now, maybe sugar turns into energy a lot faster, but it's all energy. If you eat just before you go to bed and you're telling me that you can't go to sleep, I'm going to say you have food. You have food that is giving your body energy, food that has to be digested, and that could be a key reason why some people are having a hard time going to sleep. But back to my daughter. I ended up connecting with the teacher and letting him know that I don't believe in snacks. I'm not saying that once in a while you can't have snacks or that I don't have snacks sometimes, but generally speaking, we don't need snacks. Now, the athlete, like Robin here on Live at 5, absolutely, there are certain situations where more calories are absolutely needed. And spreading out the calories throughout the day might be better. But for the average person, if you're sitting all day or sitting most of the day, and even if you're just having one workout in the day, you don't really need to have food coming into the body all the time. It keeps the body occupied. The digestive system is keeps needing to work. And it's not the best thing for elimination. And when we think of stress, or if you got like stress coming up and we're eating, we actually shouldn't be eating because the way our nervous system works is we kind of shut off our digestive function, just like if you're being chased by a lion, as the story goes, and then you wouldn't be digesting your food as well anyway. So people talk to bloating and all these different symptoms that they have, and that's a key thing to remember. So 3 meals a day, 3 good meals a day is really all we need. Some people are getting away with 2.5. You know, that's them. You're going to play with it. This is no hard and fast rule here. But snacks, what are snacks? Typically snacks are usually the carbs, the potato chips, the sugar granola bars, you know, not the wholesome foods. Not like how many people actually have soup as a snack. Some people will have fruit as a snack, but that's not all they'll have. Other people will have like a muffin and a coffee or chocolate milk or something like that. That's just extra calories that the body does not need, even though you probably might be craving it due to stress. I mean, that you have to understand how the body works at times, that you know, carbs, instant sugar, that's where, but then we need to deal with that part, you know, as a kind of a separate thing there. But no snacks. So I started a no snack movement last year, you know, time permitting. I don't really have time to focus on that. But that's what I would say. We don't need snacks. In fact, the farmers, from what I understand, used to work on the farm for a couple of hours, come in, have a big, massive breakfast, and then not eat till dinner time. So that's 2 meals. And that's a farmer who's outside, fresh air, light, and working away and being active. So just something for you to think about. Try it. See how you do. It surely would save you time going to get the snack. Although if you want a break, just go outside and go for a short walk or something. If that's kind of what you need to get up out of your seat, whether it's, you know, going outside or walking around the office, preferably outside would be the break of choice, where you get some light and some fresh air. Which brings me to another aspect that I lectured on, and that was how quite often, you know, we'll go with labels, right? And this is a thing to do with eating. You know, I'm vegetarian, I'm vegan. I'm just going to say, well, you're human, and that's how you choose to eat, is these certain foods for the reasons you do, which is perfectly fine. But I find there's so much more separation these days based on, well, here's the vegan group, and here's the raw food group, and here's the vegetarian group, and this and that. Or some people say they're vegan, but they're not a vegan 100% of the time. When people ask me, what do I eat? I like wholesome foods, and I eat raw foods and, you know, whole foods, and I try to skirt all around it. I don't have a title or a label or want to say any one thing or go into any bucket. And when I did the presentation about eating disorders and that kind of realm, it came to me that when I was interviewing people or bumping into people and just kind of asking them about eating habits, their mindset on eating, they would come out with these labels every time. And I say, well, we got into different discussions about, well, I drink raw milk. And the one girl who was a vegan said, oh, I'd love raw milk. Well, why don't you have raw milk? Well, I'm a vegan. And the other person who was, I think she was a vegan too, might have been a raw foodist. But I said, well, is there any food you ever crave? And she said, yeah, like Swiss chalet sauce. You know, that dipping sauce has been forever since I've had it, but I remember it's tasty sauce. And she was saying, well, I'd really like that. And I said, well, why don't you have it? Well, because my whole family, everybody, you know, I'm a vegetarian or vegan, whatever it was. And she would not have it. Now, hats off for discipline. Hats off for discipline. But people, I mean, to say that you're a vegan, but you're not a vegan, I met people that were raw foodists, and I'm talking to them going, don't you ever want like a piece of cheese or something like that? It's somewhat raw food, to tell you the truth, but I mean, it's mammalian. And they said, yeah. It turns out, having these conversations with them, they actually said, well, they actually confessed that they eat cheese in the closet. Okay, not in the closet, but you know what I mean. And this is causing people, now if you tell everybody you're a vegan and then you eat cheese in the closet or you sneak some cheese, how do you think that makes you feel? How do you think you would be feeling about it? You're telling everybody what label of how you eat. And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but there's that feeling that you do want to have something some of the time. Maybe it's once every 2 months. Well, give yourself permission to have it and, drop the labels more and more. And it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. We don't have to, we don't have to go with the labels as we think people do, be a part of groups. So those are two things I wanted to talk about today. But the one thing I wanted to mention is something that came about regarding thinking about choices and vaccine or not vaccine. I know that heavy topic of vaccine for some people, but in the US they have a compensation plan, which means if you have been injured by vaccines, yes, people do get injured by vaccines and flu shots, there's compensation that they're able to tap into. We're talking life-changing things happen when they get these shots. They can't work. And some people have been sick for months, been in the hospital. And there's a particular person in here in Canada who's fighting for the compensation plan. But there's no compensation plan here in Canada. And this person is, because he was really affected. I think he was in the hospital for several weeks and then some, and can't work and so forth. But really, when we think about anything that we're being told we need to do, we're really doing it at our own risk when it comes in Canada, especially to do with vaccines, right? We're doing it at our own risk. So the big word responsibility comes into play here. That responsibility as people, as individuals, comes for everything. Vaccines. You are responsible for what happens if you get injured by the vaccination. Right? There's so much responsibility. Now, there's so many safety things out there too that really hinder as well. I'm not against safety. It's kind of like my middle name. Safety is very, very important, from washing your hands to moving too quickly and not thinking and so forth and panicking. So many things around safety. So those are the three things I wanted to talk about today. Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk about, yes, the no snack movement. All we need is 3 meals a day, if that. Now, hopefully, working towards good, wholesome food, real food, more and more. If you're in a place of having potato chips and things like that, or you know how I feel about vegetable oil, you could remove that out of your diet for sure. And then the other thing was the labels. Choosing to not use labels to how you eat. So whether that's vegetarian or vegan, obviously some people ask and want you to explain. Vegetarian is a little bit more complicated because some people will have fish. They'll have fish and other things, but we can just let people know based on how we eat if they're asking, and we can talk to that there. But we don't really need labels that way. And the third thing is, yes, compensation plan for vaccinations doesn't exist here in Canada. It does in the US. If you do see emails where it's asking for your support, then that's real. People are getting injured by vaccines in the US, where you can look it up. Maybe I'll put a link down there where people are getting injured by vaccines and they are getting compensated for it. They're in the hospital for weeks, if not months, due to the vaccine or shot. So, that's keeping in mind, because I've mentioned this before, that the number 3 reason for death is actually medical and prescription drugs, all of the things that kind of happen around that error, maybe not taking it properly, maybe when it comes to prescriptions, they don't really do research on, well, if you're taking 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, or I had one client who was taking 19 medications, there's no research on how they work together. There were so many medications coming in at the body at the same time. So that's, that's the third cause of death in the US, maybe in the world, wherein there's medicine, prescriptions, and surgery, and all, that kind of stuff. That's just something to be mindful of. Really the big thing around that is ask questions, do your research, find out about things. And that's where we kind of want to fall into, where we get to ask questions. So you may not believe people get injured. You may not believe that, prescription medication is a third leading cause of death. But do your research and ask your questions, specifically if it has to do you, because you are responsible. If you say yes, or if you say no, whatever it is, you're responsible for what's going to happen to your body. And they usually sign off on it. Or remember my father's quick story. He had a heart attack and he was in the hospital, and I was there when the doctor came in, because this is just before they gave his surgery, and the doctor's there, and the doctor, sits down and starts talking to him. And yes, I recommend you get the surgery. I think it was a quadruple bypass. And he says, I just got to say these things to you, and then I just got to get your agreement on it. And one of them was cause death. And there was these other things that came about, but clearly when you're going in for the operations, they're not responsible. They're doing what they're doing. Of course, they don't know what they're up against, perhaps, even though they've done the operation hundreds and hundreds of times. So ask questions for sure, and do your research and do the best you can. If anything, make sure your body is as healthy as possible, because the health nurse here in Toronto said, the nurses, when it comes to vaccines or flu shots, they're supposed to ask you if you have any compromised immune system, if you've been through something recently, basically compromised immune system. Maybe you feel like you get a cold, something's coming on, you've been around something. They're supposed to ask this. This is part of their training, but there's no audit. There's nothing that says they cannot, maybe forget to say it. But we as people can learn this stuff and actually use it to our benefit. And, that would be the time that you wouldn't get any shots or things like that. I mean, they do with dental, right? You go into the dental office, and before they can do any surgery, they will give you antibiotics to make sure that the infection is down. So similar for when you're going to get flu shots or vaccines, that you make sure there's no compromised immune system there, that you're feeling tip-top shape. So that's it for today. I want to thank everybody for coming on. And again, we just talked about no snack movement. Forget the snack, save yourself some time, save yourself some money, and save your body from having all this excess energy, which in case of my daughter, she doesn't really need all this excess energy because they're, sitting around in the classroom most of the time. Then labels. Now, we can do without labels as to how we eat. We can just be clean and simple and how we eat. We eat food, and we eat it with our mouth. And then the third thing was to understand that here in Canada, we do not have any compensation plan for vaccines. That is in the US, because clearly they wouldn't have a compensation plan if people weren't getting injured from flu shots and vaccines. But here in Canada, we don't have it. So you take that responsibility by going to get the vaccines and the flu shots. Just make sure your immune system's stronger. So thank you everyone for coming on board. I don't see any questions, but always welcome questions and areas of health that you might be interested in and have questions on. I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful evening. This is Cheryl Millett, live at 5, Mondays on Facebook. This will be recorded here, of course, and then moved over to YouTube. I just want to say, if you can go over to YouTube, I'm just writing a book proposal, and I'm seeing that it's important how many people are listening to you. They want to know that in the book proposal. So if you can hop over to YouTube and like my channel, subscribe to my channel, as they say, that would be awesome. So have a great rest of the evening, a great rest of the week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Best of health. Bye for now.